All right. So, Greg Behrendt, welcome to The Art. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon.
Yeah.
And as the kids say, I can't even with you. I was trying to put together an introduction, and I usually write these long introductions of everything on your resume.
Right.
Where to start? You're a comic, first and foremost.
Right.
A musician, a writer, a podcaster, a performer, a playwright, television host. What did I leave out?
Playwright I don't have in my. What do you do? Did I write a?
I'm talking about your show.
Oh my God! Yes, that is right. That is right. I forgot. No. I know exactly what you're talking about. The King sweater. Yes. No, you're right. I never. I rarely give myself titles. When I'm doing something, I'm just being. Like you're like I'm me now doing this. I never think of myself as the thing that we're doing, which might help actually when I do it, because. Maybe sometimes you have to really wear the hat of the thing you're doing while you're doing it to remember that's what you're doing.
So today I am playwriting.
Right. Well, yeah, because if you don't, then you go, I'm not a playwright. And it's like, well, then stop writing a play.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't come to see not a play.
Right.
Right. Well, I'm not a screenwriter. Then please don't, because there's way too many people in line. So I do think there is some sense in actually assuming the role of and being able to say. I think people sometimes are even afraid they feel like they're bragging if they're like, I'm a writer. It took me a long time to say I'm a writer.
Yes.
Because the first books that I wrote, they didn't feel like literature to me, right? As I perceive literature. And then after a while I went, well, that's stupid. You wrote, you gave your, you put effort into it. It's like other people write. It is what it is, People read it. I don't know what else to call it, right?
Yeah.
So I am a writer,
Yes, and you were working on a show. Now, the first book I know of is the popular one you co-wrote.
The
He's
Da
just
Vinci
not that
Code.
into you.
No, you're right. And that's always been the punchline. I got a new punchline for that. We got to update that with a new book.
There you go. Was there something before that?
No, there was nothing before.
Okay.
He's just not that into you. Yeah, and that was I had to be at my arm twisted to do, because I didn't think there was a book in telling people that they shouldn't go out with assholes, right? I mean, I just didn't. I mean, it would have been not a good book if I had thought I should be telling people not to date assholes. It was a better book as a woman saying to me, let me ask you questions. I believe you should be telling people not to date assholes, because when you told me, I heard it. Right. So it worked in that way, I think, and then it allowed me to play around with the genre of self-help, which was fun because I knew a little bit about it, but I also knew what I didn't like, and so I was able to like kind of go, nobody cares why we came up with the idea. Nobody wants a long story about who we are. They just want to know, am I going to have a boyfriend or not? Is this going to work out for me? That's all anyone buys a self-help book for, is where is it that where it comes together for me? How do I help me? They want to find their page. They're not interested in your biography or.
Oh, right. The background of you as the author, your story.
Yeah, and they don't want a workbook necessarily, like maybe something to distract them, but they really just want help. That's what those books are.
You want to feel better.
Yes, I think if your help is processed, like if in the second book, the breakup book, I thought, okay, they do need a program. They do want a program because they need someone to occupy their time. So let's make this a fuller, more robust read, because it's not going to solve the problem today. It's going to help solve it down the line. Whereas he's just not that into you. It's almost like a magic 8-ball. It's like, magic 8-ball. Why don't I reference some other things from the 40s?
Oh, there should be one here. Of all places, the All Things Comedy Studio.
They should have a magic 8-ball.
Aaron, do you have an 8-ball? At home.
And what she was talking about was, do you have any cocaine?
I know.
Because we're going to go full Scorsese on this.
Right.
Yeah, a magic, it was sort of like, it was almost like a predictor. Like people were like, oh, I should find out. If I'm in that book, I'm in trouble, And they'd look to see if their story was similar, because it was the same answer. The answer's on the cover.
So the book, he's just not that into you definitely is the answer. And it's affirming. It's like you think it, you suspect it in the back of your mind. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. It's like with anything else. It's always nice to have confirmation. And we all want that in life. We always want to know that even if it's there is relief in even finding out the bad news, because now I got a problem I can work with, as opposed to, do I have a problem? Do I not have a problem? It's not a problem. Is he okay? It's okay. It's not okay. It's going to be okay. And then you're like, no, it's not okay. And you're like, oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I can try and make plans to move elsewhere or do whatever.
Yeah.
And that isn't an easy thing to find in, I think it was what made it unique is, a lot of self-help books are, they suppose an idea and they, it's all theory, Or this was pretty much like, here's the list of stuff that people do and they don't like you. And also you already know it because you have the book.
Right. You have it right there in front of you. Now, the second book you're referencing is, it's called A Breakup Because It's Broken.
Yeah.
And you wrote that with Miss Amira?
And that was the first one I wrote with So Liz, the co-author of the first book, she wanted to and has continued to write television and films, and she's directing, and I think she's running the show Divorce. And super talented. And then Amira and I wanted to write together, and we had written and sold a script before and worked on a couple things, and then we thought, there's still more books in this, so we sold the idea of called The Breakup Because It's Broken.
And so that came from the idea, but was there more that really drove you to do that? Was it an idea that kept coming up over and over, or an idea?
We felt like we had asked so many people in the first book to get out of their relationship without an exit plan.
Oh, right.
And so we thought, why not have an exit plan? And also, we had both had a very similar response to a crushing breakup. We both sort of decided, okay, I'm just going to date people from here on out. I'm going to date people. I'm going to see more than one person at once. I'm not going to sleep with anybody, but I'm not going to get exclusive so quickly, and I'm not going to put all my hopes into one thing, and I'm going to, I'm going to change the way I go about my life, and I'm going to take 60 days off from, I have to, I had gone through a breakup where I was like, if I don't put a restraining order on myself, they're going to put a restraining order on me because I don't know how to handle this. And so we had a 60-day he talks, she talks, whatever thing, and talking about, stop revisiting the past with the rewrites, doing the rewrites of how the past was. I mean, you weren't thinking that 2 weeks ago, and, just trying to get into the head of a person, because I think it's a lonely place being in a breakup. My goal now would be, one of the things I'm trying to develop right now is an app.
Oh, yeah.
That has a meditation element to it, so that information from the book is done in meditation form daily over 60 days. And they're short meditations, and they start off with it'd be me or Amira reading it and saying, you could choose between a man or a woman. And it would be, the first day would be like, well, fuck that guy. Fuck him.
Right.
I mean, this is going to be a meditation, but it's okay. You know what?
Yeah.
For today, they can go fucking straight to hell. Right? Because that's where you're at. But we can't live the next 60 days like that. So get it out now, and then ease into the idea of, look, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the rocket ship out of this, not just this breakup, but these patterns in life that got you here. Right.
You're breaking up with part of yourself.
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
Well.
If you really do it right, you can really have a transformation that will, that is in fact transformative, that will actually make your life different on the other end. Yes.
Ideally that. So then that sounds like it's related to the next book, which is It's Just a Date. So you went from, and maybe we'll unpack more, there's what's wrong and what's not working.
Right.
And then there's get out of it,
right.
Go through the breakup.
Yep.
And the app is genius.
I hope the app, I don't even know who develops it. I have made a deck for it.
Okay.
And I've based it on a couple of meditation, because I love meditation apps. They're I'm late to meditation like most people my age, but I am grateful for it. I do almost an hour of it every morning, and I do it guided, and sometimes I do it in silence, and I can do it in the car, and I understand it in a way that that used to be sort of like everything else. It sort of was an elite thing for people who really wanted to get to, and there was this idea of nirvana and all these different things. And all you're trying to do is get people to understand that you're just a spirit inhabiting a body, and that it's quiet where you are actually. And the rest of it is just these tapes running around in your head, and that you can, with breathing, because you can't breathe and think at the same time. You have to be able to know that space in between is where you are. And I love it. And it's been super helpful to me. And I think it can be applied to situations. I mean, I don't golf, so I'm not going to make a golf app, but there could be a meditation for golf. I mean, if you're out on the thing and you were like, you lose your mind, you put in a thing, it's just like, where are you? Let's just get centered here. Doesn't matter how you're doing because this game isn't about point. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, that I'm hoping to. I mean, the app world is sort of, they just sort of make it up as they go along, I suppose.
So you have your concept and you get with an app developer. This is making me think of Laura House, who we know and who's awesome.
Yes.
And she's done meditations at the end of her comedy shows.
Yeah.
She did a meditation here in this room at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And now she has her meditation podcast. And then I saw her at Dynasty Typewriter teaching meditation.
She's great. She is one of the people that got me into it, and I just thought, applied to that world of breakup, I mean, more than anything, you just don't want to be alone and to feel like you have someone on your shoulder saying, hey, man, I've been there. We've all been there. Where you are is normal and it's horrible. And this is not going to change it the way you want it to, to right this minute. But truly, if you stick with this, I promise you, you'll be in a place that you wouldn't be if not for the dedication to, getting through it. You have to put your mind to it,
It sounds like a recovery plan.
It's a recovery plan.
Yeah.
It's 100% a recovery plan. It's letting go and, trusting the universe and knowing that this is all meant to be. And that's hard, man, because when you're upset, you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to eat some fucking ice cream. I don't need, what? This sounds like horseshit. But I think people get to a point when they're bad breakups of, I'll try anything. I just want out of this.
Yeah, and they're self-soothing in other ways usually. Like you said, there's the ice cream, or there's affairs, or there's
Booze.
anger, booze,
Yeah.
anything, or just going out, going wild, too much work, whatever it is. There's something to take the mind off of it.
And look, it's created, I would imagine that off the heels of breakups, great governments have been built, I think, there aren't that many things that motivate us in that way. So, a lot of our art and, buildings, all of that stuff, I think are the result of somebody being motivated in a way where they were hurt enough. Most things come from some kind of, recovery. Whenever somebody has something happen there, you're like, well, what had happened was a week before I had no plan to do this, or I was in a different place, and then suddenly I thought, and you only get to that kind of thinking when you're in crisis. So you actually have this moment of being able to take coal and shove it into a diamond because you've got all this energy. But if you misuse it, you're just, you're wasting that with booze and all that.
Right. You're numbing, so you're not able to fully tap into that energy.
Yeah.
It's like you have to go into and through the pain and the discomfort and all the change to take full advantage of the energy and the motivation that's there. And the insights, the inspiration.
And you're up. Do something. And it's tough, and it is. It's like sometimes you're like, nothing will take my mind off of it. Everything reminds me of it. And it's like, well, then dig into it. Like, you get to decide what your brain is doing. We don't understand, you get to decide. You can stop everything and say, nope, I ain't buying this bullshit, or I'm just going to sit here. You can, but it's tough. That sounds so much easier than it really is.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's hard to know what to do. You're a little bit paralyzed at the same time.
Look, we do things fully knowing that they're wrong. Our impulses are like, I don't fucking care that this is wrong. We're going, okay, throw it.
Yeah.
I think that's just part of the human condition is that, but I think that's also part of the journey is like, look, we're bored most of the time because we were meant to be animals. And so we've taken a lot of our problems are solved. We've got indoors and we've got a lot of stuff. And so our problems are not the real world problems of trying to hunt food and all that kind of stuff. Right. So with our consciousness, we make up a lot of stuff because our brain wants to be busy, normally be out solving some kind of a problem, but instead it has to make up a problem to solve because there's nothing to do.
Right. We have to, everything, they say that the whole world becomes the saber-toothed tiger because we don't have the actual saber-toothed tiger to go after.
Right. That's right. The only thing left over from the prehistoric times are dogs. Some dogs. Right?
So, some dogs. Some birds. I have.
Some birds, yeah.
I don't know if this is. I don't know if you have something for this question, but it does sound like a lot of the writing was based on your experience. Can you point to something? Is there something that comes to mind that you did create and you're proud that you did that came out of some pain?
Oh, I mean, most of my early stand-up came. Most of the stuff that I will claim that I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all of it comes, like even the I put a record out in 2000 maybe or 2001 called Uncool, and that was a result of feeling sort of old. I mean, even God, now I think about it, it's ridiculous.
That was 18 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember when
Yeah,
that was.
but I do remember feeling like, oh man, it's over for me, at 40 something, because I got called out at a rock show. All my bands in college and high school were results of breakups. I would get in a breakup and then I'd form some new band or
Put it into the music.
Yeah, and a lot of like what's in the breakup book is it wasn't in the moment, but it was because of a relationship that I had when I moved down here, and I was I was too devastated to do anything with it then, but I got sober. So I mean, that was me taking back control and saying, no, I can't. I'm not going to let this relationship or my self-esteem win this one. I don't. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky and get divorced, and then I'll really create something awesome. But I haven't. I've been very fortunate to not have too many devastating losses. I've had my own personal and physical struggles, but those don't make me sad in that way.
It's not the same kind of energy. It's a different kind of energy.
No, because there's vengeance in the other one. Vengeance is, there's a little bit of like, oh, fucking show these people.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you do with your career. I think sometimes things happen to you and you think, oh, fuck everybody, I'll show them. Or I'm not going to do it that way. I mean, I think sometimes, Oswald used to say, you have to find your asshole, like you have to find the person whom you're, and I think there's some truth in that. It's tougher when you get older, and I think you have to find some other operating system, because anger on an old guy is really unattractive, and it just seems kind of pathetic.
Yeah, I refer to the ODDs in my neighborhood, the red-faced, older than us, older guys driving like, go!
The older I get, the more respect I have for Lewis Black, because he pulled it off, and it's not easy. Because something about him made you think he was a bigger idiot than the things he was saying. Like his anger was, he was frustrated with his own life, not the thing he was calling out. Right. Yeah. Bill Burr has that ability to be able to, he can say something that in most comics wouldn't be able to pull off as anything less than a hate crime. And yet it's Bill who you feel badly for, because he's allowed himself to be the victim of the joke, right?
The butt of the joke, yeah.
He's the victim of his own small thinking or his too big thinking. You know what I mean? Like and that's what makes him endearing and makes his work so good. And it's a really tough thing to pull off. So when you get older, people just go, God, I just don't even why would I have empathy for you? And as an older white man right now, mostly what you should say is, can I get anybody anything? Does anyone need any? Are we good? Okay, I didn't want to stay out of the way.
That's your role now.
Anybody interested in hearing my complaints? I didn't think so. Nope, I didn't think anyone was interested in what I don't like or get or understand.
Right. Anybody want to hear what I'm pissed off about or what I read in the paper today?
No. Your take, the other thing is you realize there's a lot of wisdom that comes with getting older, and there are these watershed moments and your head bursts open. You think, oh, I'm going to tell everybody. And then you think, no, this is what this part of life is. And so, I mean, I can tell other people my age, but I don't want to go yell this at a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old. I don't want to try and help. If somebody asks a question, I'm happy to answer it, but nobody wants my guidance, and I don't want to try and guide anybody who doesn't want guidance.
Yeah.
Only when the question is asked.
I think that's part of the wisdom that comes with it. I've had that same experience of like, why didn't I figure this out 20 years ago or 30 years ago? And I think, oh, but no, whoever's on the journey now, they have to figure it out too.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's the whole part of learning. I mean, people would say, well, why you should make He's Just Not That Indie for high school girls. Well, high school girls aren't indie. They need to get their hearts broken. What better place to get your heart broken than in high school? I mean, they're all kids and they're young adults, and I understand that it can be very dark. I'm not advocating that people get their hearts broken, but I'm saying, how do you learn? You can't protect something from something they haven't experienced. You know, in theory, you can know what it's like to slam your finger in a drawer, but until you've done it,
yeah,
how bad can it be? It can be really bad, but it really is you're gonna have to experience it, and that's tough when you have kids because you want them to experience no pain. Yeah. On the other hand, you have no idea how they're gonna learn unless they take some dumb risks.
They have to navigate that. They have to learn what the
and
relationships
it's going to
are.
fuel their creativity, and it's also what are they going to build out of their mess? Because if it was all perfect, we wouldn't be building anything, which might be a problem for us in the future. You know, if everything's done for us, what is there left to do? You know, I mean, we were still solving problems when I was a kid. You know, there were still airplanes were falling out of the sky more regularly. You know, things were we didn't have it. You know, and I don't wish there to be airplanes falling out of the sky. Right, what I'm saying is that the struggle was just part of everyday life, and there is less of it.
Well, there are problems to be solved now. I mean, the guy who had hit a low in life and then tried to figure out how to get water to more places in the world. I mean, there are things that people do.
Yeah.
I want to tie this to your
how they
book
do it.
with
Super Bowl ads.
There you go.
I've got those big Super Bowl ads. Water, you know that, right? The big Super Bowl ads where everybody's coming back as their former famous self. And then I know this because I saw Carrie Bradshaw's not her name. I saw Sarah Jessica Parker at the Today Show yesterday, and she was there to promote the ad that she's in where she plays Sarah Jessica Parker at the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And then if you buy the water, then they send water to another country. For every bottle you buy, they send a certain amount or something.
Okay. That's going to sell water.
It's a beer.
Oh, is it beer?
Stella Artois. You buy some Stella Artois, and then isn't Stella Artois a beer?
Yes, it is. And there's the glass, the chalice, and I have heard this. I've seen this ad before.
Yeah.
Aaron, was it last year's Super Bowl?
What is your Super Bowl commercial background, Aaron? And will you be appraising us of when we go on and off book? Yeah, I guess someone told me that, and then I guess Jeff Bridges is dressing up as the dude. Like, I mean, they got some, but it's for water. So Matt Damon asked all of his famous friends to do it. I mean,
there you go.
Matt Damon's been good on water.
Yeah.
I remember having this silly discussion with Ben Stiller, who's a friend in passing, but he's like, yeah, I got Haiti, man. Damon picked water. I mean, water is big, man. I mean, Haiti, you can't keep that conversation going. Water you can always talk about. People understand water. Sometimes people go, okay, that's enough Haiti, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, Damon picked water.
He's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, you got no complaints. I got no complaints with Damon.
That Matt Damon, he hasn't gotten on the wrong side of anyone.
Not.
So you and Amir were on the Today Show, and
yesterday,
and you're here today, moving up in the world.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I was so happy for you guys, and I saw Laura House was posting she was so happy for you guys,
she's
and
awesome.
I was like, oh my God, flying to New York, Rebecca. Good for you guys. You were there talking about the book that you wrote together, How to Keep Your Marriage from Sucking.
Yes.
And I loved hearing Savannah Guthrie say that title. She was just a little hesitant every time she said it.
What was funny is, so she did the thing that we always try to avoid, because Liz doesn't get credit for the book enough that she was in it, and Savannah Guthrie riffed. This is the guy that wrote He's Just Not That Into You. And I went, I co-wrote it.
Co-wrote, yeah.
And then when they brought me back in, then they said it again. They said co-writing. But, but I was thrilled. I was just excited to see, she's tall, which I didn't expect. And then she, it's funny when you do this stuff because, those guys are working 1 million miles a minute. I mean, they look at the copy and they're like, oh, it's Greg Behrendt. Right? And they're like, this is relationships. Like, they weren't sitting at home, right? Last night worrying about it, because they do this every day, and they're quick reads. And so then they sat down, and she was lovely, and she remembered the book, and she said, we were in the conversation, and one of the questions we say is, how is it that you want to be loved? And then Carson repeated it to her, and then she said, you know what? I'm not going to think about it. I don't know. And I love when it gets to that point where you think, oh, if we only had the time.
Yes.
Let's talk about how you want to be loved, Savannah Guthrie.
Yeah.
I want to have that conversation. I want to know about your marriage. I do think people want to hear the other one that Amira really hit the ball out of the park with was the I need time away from you, which I'm like
alone time.
Yeah, I'm like a Labrador retriever. I just want to lay in her lap and I'll be around and I realize sometimes older white men of this generation need a lot of hugs. The old Gen Xers need a lot of hugs.
Reassurance.
I think it's a different time. I think there's less of a defined path for men. Women have a path, any path they can choose, and they can choose, and a lot of them choose to have kids and a career, and then they can have kids and then a career, and then but they start to discover themselves. I'm finding, when the kids are in the teens or in that age where and men are losing jobs, are halfway through a career and didn't get to do the thing they wanted to do, or and there's a little bit of hopelessness, and it's a weird, and that's the way it is now. It didn't used to be that way. There were just sort of more, I don't want to argue for antiquated rituals, but there was sort of, here's how you age as a man and here's how you age as a woman, and it's very simple, and you're on a cruise ship. When people are starting businesses in their 50s and they're doing other enterprising things, and nobody has all their money, and not everyone has Medicare, and not everything is taken care of. I mean, I know we still have a lot left to make. So it's a weird time, and so the question, so men I feel like are like, oh man, I really just want to have the one friend and really lay around the house, I think is what I like to do with my one friend. And the one friend's like, I think I want to go travel and do things, and not necessarily with you. Cool. Okay, cool. I'll be here crying. So
I'll be here when you get back. Do you want me to save you some dinner?
Yeah. Or you're not coming. Okay, we'll say hi to everybody.
Yeah. It is different, and I think as Gen X, I mean, we didn't want to follow any of the things like midlife crisis or any of that. Like, that wasn't going to define us. We were going to set our own path and be in the shadow of the boomers, and with the millennials coming up behind us.
The Gen X is never mentioned. It is still the boomers and then the millennials. And the Gen Xers are like, it's like when Kurt Cobain killed himself, he turned off the lights for everybody. It's like the whole generation shot itself in the head, and they're like, oh, they died with their Converse on. They were, it's, and what's sort of weird for me when I look back on it is I very much identify, I'm of an age where I'm right on the cusp. I mean, I could almost be a boomer, right? But my work came of age during Generation X, right? Which is the right time for a comic. And for me, I was in my 30s, right? But I identify with that music and with that time and with my peers. And the men of that era, and when I did my very first comedy special, which was called Mentastic, which was about me bucking up against the definition of gender roles, the lead singers of the world's most popular grunge bands were all pro-gay, pro-rap, pro women, riot girl loving dudes. Yeah. They were good white guys with drug problems, but still, they got to have some Achilles heel. But those guys, Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, were very anti-frat boy and stopped shows and stopped grabbing women, and they really were. And that was kind of an interesting group of guys that just sort of vanished as though it never happened, right? And that sort of, and at that time, everybody else was still very disenfranchised. So the only one to speak out at that point in time would be a white guy.
True.
To say we need to acknowledge gay men and women, and we need to acknowledge women, and we need to, because we were the only ones with the microphones, I think King of Queens killed it. So I mean, you can ask Aaron. I don't know, but but there was that. What about the dumb white guy? Like I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. It's, well, in the 90s, there were a lot of groups getting attention and in need of representation,
Yes.
but it was
Still a
me,
subculture, right?
Yeah, it was a subculture, but it also felt like, I don't know, for me, I felt like we were closer together.
Yes.
I felt like we were closer together than maybe we are now. Although I hear good things about how we're progressing, and when they measure the attitudes of the younger generations,
Yep.
the X and the Y, that we're more understanding and less hateful and less biased. But
we were, for the most part, white. We met it through MTV, whether it was the cool MTV or the uncool MTV. Mm-hmm. As hip hop began to start to become, sort of burst out of MTV, it went into MTV and then burst back out of it, and then was mm-hmm. also still very much alive in areas where there weren't white people. Mm-hmm. It had a real system to fight. It had a real, the raison d'etre a la the grunge bands was, my dad could have been cooler, but talk about dissatisfaction with growing up mm-hmm. in families and something, real important stuff. But, the rap music was, we're being shot.
Yeah.
We're being so there was a potency there. And then the Riot Girls were really just so, it was like girls had guns. It was like girls, the girls with the guitars were like girls with guns, and they weren't waiting. It was sort of the precursor to the women's movement in that it was like, no, we're not. I'm not asking.
Right.
We're taking, and mm-hmm. we're not interested, and you can leave, and we don't care, and back, and like different than the way feminism had been presented mm-hmm. in the pop culture. I don't. Yeah. Women have felt that way forever, I would imagine.
But there was a real voice to those females.
It was very. It was. That's that thing that something coalesces and suddenly you get the message. Mm-hmm. But you weren't getting the message completely. It was, being funneled and marginalized and well, they're just angry because there was always that kind of thing. And then and then Bikini Kill comes along. And you go, I'm gonna fucking whatever you guys need. I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got it. There was just we're done. And mm-hmm. I think it's. And I think that it's continued to, mm-hmm. I think without Bikini Kill, there isn't a, what was the big festival with the women's band?
Lilith Fair?
Lilith Fair, yeah. But I think, right. Lighter version, but for everybody.
Yes.
It had to go, and it white.
Yep.
Again, white.
Very
and they
white.
all, but always on those bills, always on Lollapalooza was this, look, mm-hmm. Everything takes time, but there was always the inclusion of, black and white and gay mm-hmm. artists. It took a long time for them to get to the headline, for it to, and actually in the span of time, not that long, mm-hmm. given length of,
Right. I was thinking recently, watching the Women's March that just occurred, and all of a sudden, I thought the words "women's liberation," women's liberation movement. I also had watched the Ruth Bader Ginsburg biopic, mm-hmm. Women's liberation, and then it just hit me all of a sudden, like, liberation. Fuck that. I don't need liberating.
Right.
Like, we're liberated. That is not what this is about. Like,
right.
we're free. We're not captive necessarily. Some
right.
are, but it's more about the next gen, like rights and getting up to the pay and
ownership.
Access and all of those things, and not being treated the way we don't want to be treated, and having that be systemic in certain industries. It's that kind of thing. It's enough with the sexual abuse of all genders, but it's
of all people. As the most straight men will never tell their stories, but as time goes on and you suddenly are hanging around with a couple comics, and then the guy will go, I did this thing at ABC once, and the woman, I didn't think of it at the time, right? And you start to go, oh yeah, I have a few stories like that. I was grabbed a few times, but we just, it took a while to recatalog that thing, because you were told you're flattered, right?
Yeah, that's
right?
great.
You're a guy. What, are you going to complain about that?
Yeah.
Of course she was after me. Why? Who wouldn't? Like, then you start going, oh no, that's what, but I'm not I didn't see myself as being, I didn't have to make that deal to make something happen, and I wouldn't, and who would I tell anyway? But it's not anything comparable to what women and other people have been through, but it happened all the way. It happens across the board.
And it could. A man could just as well be blackmailed by a female in power. He could be abused and blackmailed and told, because when money's on the line and you're trying to support yourself or your family, and you hit that point of desperation, and predators usually look for the vulnerability and the desperation, and you're like, oh no, you're not gonna.
Didn't Michael Douglas make that movie?
Yes,
with
he did.
with
Demi Moore.
With Demi Moore, yeah. Right. And again, not a story anyone's looking to hear right this moment, but yes, any people in a position of power can be incredibly cruel, and use it to their advantage. And there will always be bad people in the world. But there's also that thing too where, and you find yourself in a position where it's like, oh, I have all of these things hang in the balance, But at the same point, you have to go. But the balance never gets broken for this.
Right. There's a line.
Nobody that I love is expecting me to put myself in a position of harm for them so that we can go to school or whatever it is you're paying for, whatever the thing is, right?
Buy another pair of jeans.
Yeah.
The things that we forget might
well,
not
it depends
be as
on
important.
the jeans.
I know. I know. You guys are fashionistas. I heard that on your podcast.
Yeah.
So music, this is interesting. We got talking about music. You're known more for your stand-up during that time period, let's say during the 90s.
Yeah.
But you are a talented musician. And did I see you just post yourself playing guitar very well, shredding guitar, and saying nothing else I'd rather do, or something like that?
Well, that is my I just love playing guitar. I won't argue with your assessment of my playing because I've learned to take compliments. But I was, I came up during the era of Eddie Van Halen when I started, and I had started guitars.
That's a tough one to compare yourself.
Well,
to.
I got into music to get away from being a jock, and I didn't like the competition of that, and I went right into a world that was just as fiercely competitive, and most of my friends could do that kind of stuff, and so I just was like, well, I'm a lesser guitarist then. I couldn't do it. I wasn't that interested. I even liked it. I loved to listen to it, but it never was what my hands wanted to do. And eventually I just won the war of self and went, well, what do you want to do? What do you like to play?
Yeah.
And I found that I like very sort of sparser, more Link Ray sounding dirty instrumentals, right? And then and then I just love music, and I was just like, let's just see where this wants to go, There was a point where I went, it will not be your bread and butter. I think life, I mean, look, anything can happen. But there was a point where I went, you've always been pretty funny, without having to work at it. And it's a gift, and you're really not taking advantage of it. And guitar playing doesn't feel quite like a gift. It's not the same gift. It's something that I think, some people paint because they just want to fucking paint. And so I play because I just want to play. And for the long time I did instrumental music because I'm like, I don't think I can sing. But then I wrote and played something recently for fun to show people how bad I was, and I'm going to go record it next week.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I joked about how my songwriting I find to be incredibly difficult. That's the one art form I've just never been able to like I have feelings. The second I try to put them into a song, it's just like bricks fall out of my mouth. Like it just is clunky and it sounds intentional. Like it's really hard to do. And that's because I'm trying. But when the two times I tried to not write a song, I would start writing some sort of a long love song, and then it would immediately turn to death. Like I would like my first song that I wrote when I was in college, I think, was the lyrics were, you know, you made me cry when you told that lie. You know, you made me cry when you told that lie, and now I'm taking you on a hell ride to death. No room for negotiation. It goes right to the murder part.
Wow.
Like it's just a very, you know, and I
Mhm.
remember that just made us laugh in band practice. And I thought, why? I don't even like when people talk about horror movies. Like I don't
Right.
even like.
Yeah.
There's nothing violent about me. And then I thought maybe I'm taking me on a hell ride to death. Now
Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like it's a death for you.
it is a death for me because I can't envision. I wouldn't even know where to start with a murder. I don't even know. I've never privileged myself the thought of murdering somebody. I feel like knives is what I would use, but I don't know that I would. And then the next song was a song I wrote in a band. I was in a band for a really short time called the Dolly Rogers. So clever and not that funny. It went 1 skull, 2 skull, 3 in a basket. My girlfriend lives in a casket. Now that doesn't necessarily have to mean that she's dead or that I put her there. That's just simply where she lives.
But death is a theme that comes up.
But death comes up all the time for me, and in the funniest way. And I do love songs about death. My favorite songs when I was a kid. I forgot the other day. It took me a long time to remember Do you remember the Hearst song? The worms go in, the worms go out. It goes. Don't ever laugh when a hearse goes by because you may be the next to die.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I was going to say Aaron probably knows it.
Do you know it, Aaron? No. It's like an old nursery rhyme. Don't ever.
Sounds
and
like
it's a nursery rhyme. English.
And they're all demented.
Go by because you could be the next to die. And the worms go in, the worms go out. They eat your snout, and then you're in a box and you turn to jelly. But I remember singing it in school, and a lot of the kids' songs when I was a kid were just old leftover. They weren't doing like this generation. My kids have all manner of new songs. There was no Wheels on the Bus when I was a kid. Like that came along after I was a child. But we did a lot of Ring Around the Rosie and.
Yeah, it takes the place of the songs about pox and disease and.
Right, Mommy's Little Baby loves shortening bread. Do you recall this one?
Mm-hmm, yes.
In that. 3 kids, there's 1 on the bed, and then there's 3 that might be dead. Like even that.
They're poor. They're hungry.
But right, they're starving, and shortening bread must be something that you make when you're out of money.
You don't have milk.
Oh my God! And how do you make it? Is it water and is that flour and water, and then
and a little shortening, fat. Flour,
and
water,
you cook it up in a pan. That's a poor people are starving song that I love. I sang it on New Year's Eve with another comic named Whitney Chitwood, who I like, who I might start a thing with called the Heartbreak Saints, where we talk about heartbreak, and then we play songs of old nursery rhymes and stuff like that. When
you were singing the Her song just then, I could hear a guitar in the background. Like I could completely hear you putting that to music.
I really and I know there's people who there are bands that do songs about death and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think that there's any 55-year-old guys who have a healthy I mean, I don't have I'm afraid of a lot of things. Death's not one of them.
Well, and you've been...
Which is weird because that seems like that's the ultimate one. So then the other fears would seem like, well, wouldn't all fears then lead to death? Well, no, I don't. There's things I don't want. I don't want to put a spider in my mouth or eat an almond. Right? Those things sound
in
awful.
In succession.
Yeah, either of them in any order. Or I don't even want to eat almonds with a spider, not even as friends. But I don't feel... I had cancer at one point, so I don't feel ripped off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think is the thing. Like I want to see I would love to see my kids live as much of their lives as I could possibly watch. I just want to watch. I don't even want to get involved. Yeah. I just want to spectate. And awesome. I mean, I'll be involved up to the point that they will allow. But I really want to just see them turn into people and see what they do and sort of only interfere when asked. Mm-hmm. But should I have to go, I wouldn't feel like I didn't try. I didn't make the most out of it. I didn't fulfill my destiny. I don't feel, I don't have any, there are always more hills to climb, but I don't feel, I got ripped off.
Because you're still here. and you faced something that could have taken you out, didn't take you out, you're still here. And do you connect this with your art? Pursuing music, pursuing what you really feel drawn to do, is that for you part of, is that connected to living your life to the fullest and having that life?
Yeah, I would be really bummed if I didn't get up and create. You know, I write, like I'll get up, I do it in my sleep sometimes, which is weird, but I get up and I write 3 or 4 days a week. I will write fiction. Just because I have weird stories that I want to write part of. I don't have to write I'm not trying to write a book. I'm not trying to do it for any other reason than to maybe read it to people and see if it makes them laugh. And I get such fulfillment from the creating process and knowing that I'm going to get to create at some point, or that I'm going to go play guitar with some friends, like just the getting to go do it. And now I think one of the kind of cool things that I do like about the internet is you do have a venue to put it out there, so people can see it. And even if it's not everybody, you have a small crowd of people that'll watch it, and maybe something they'll like, and maybe they won't. You don't know. But I, like everybody else, I get hung up about money and what I'm going to do for money and what is worth my time doing and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, so that I can meditate for like an hour, and then the hour and a half after that is free play.
Okay.
So I write, or I draw, or I play the guitar, or I record. You know, like I'll do any number of creative pursuits, and then I'll do whatever is on the docket for the day. And sometimes that is creativity, and sometimes it isn't. Depends.
It's the things that the balance. I talk about the balance of the things that you have to do with the things you want to do.
Right.
I was doing a completely different job this morning until 1 o'clock, and then coming here and getting to do this. So, and
I wouldn't, but some days I wish I did have, like I very much, you know, there was a period where I really wished I'd just gone to barber college and learned how to cut hair for a while, because some days I just want the mundanity of this similar thing all the time, and having a small work community that I visit every day, and not have to. I don't love the flying on airplanes anymore, and I don't need to be. I don't have with comedy at this point, because to our point earlier, so I need to have to say something to go do it. If I'm just going to say something other people are saying, or if my own heart go, does that really have to travel to Philadelphia? You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm flattered that people want to hear some of the old stuff. And sometimes I'll find a topic I'm really excited to talk about, but, you know, I got to really need to want to connect with you, and I got to have something that really does that, you know? And I'm terrified also of looking out of touch. I remember watching older comics when I was younger and just going, he doesn't know that that's like 6 months behind. Oh. You know? Or he doesn't, there's rhythms, and there's there's a musicality to comedy, and sometimes your sound isn't in.
You do strike me as a person that values avant-garde. Like you want to be, and because listening to your podcast with Amira, maybe it's you.
Yes.
Maybe I was just listening to that great recent episode on the death of cool.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was really fun. That's a change up for us. We both got tired of talking about our relationship, and we felt we were also getting it on to a place. I'm like, this isn't healthy for us to talk about ourselves this much. And I know that's what we do, but it's hard. And one of the producers said, why don't you just pick a topic? Yeah. And so we were talking about the death of cool, about how it's, you know, and again, this is something you want to say to young people that they've lost on them. I don't even know if they use that word anymore, but it's not a place you ever arrive, and it's not a thing that you can do. You can copy things, and I think you develop taste in an area, and people might think you're cool, but you will probably just think, no, I'm just dressing. This is just what I choose. Yeah. This is what I choose. I have the option. I don't go people are like, you dress really well. I go, I buy from the same place America shops. I buy at, American Eagle, J. Crew, The Gap, nothing I own, And then I'll find one piece. I'll find one pair of shoes that I'll spend $600 on, and that'll be it.
I love them,
and I'll wear them forever. Right? I mean, I'll spend the money on something that I feel like this is so well crafted, and such a piece, such a thing, But the rest of it is just about the way you put stuff together, and also trying to figure out, how do I dress for this age? There's things I see on people and I think, oh, good God, could you imagine if I wore that? Like every once in a while, I think, God, it would really be funny to dress like a 20-year-old one day. Just go pick the girls up at school and just have my daughters go, get back in the car. Daddy, get back in the car. What are you doing? Why? Is that a fur collar? Get in the car. What are you, Nicki Minaj now? I should have said Cardi B.
You were Cardi B online for a while.
I was Cardi B, yeah, because I love cardigans. My last name's Behrendt. Cardi B. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, oh my God.
I was Crybaby Spider-Man for a little while. I was, yeah. And then I just went with Gregory Behrendt because it turns out, as my wife said, people probably just want to know you by your name. I don't think you're not the Thin White Duke, so it's not time for you to have an alias, David Bowie. Just go ahead and...
It's a good name.
What's that? Gregory Behrendt?
Yeah.
We were joking the other day. I think it's we talked about it a little bit on that podcast.
Yes, you did.
I like Gregory now. People call me Gregory. I use Gregory. Only because Greg it feels like a punchline. But and Behrendt is difficult, I guess. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to coddle everybody. But I really thought Dane Cook had the most amazing name when I met him.
I think
first.
he thinks that too.
Yeah? I have a buddy named Kane Holloway, and I'm like...
That's a good one.
I'm like, he can't even follow his own name. It's so good. Like, that name's so good that you can't even... If I call you up, people are like, ah. And he's good looking. He's like a good looking, funny guy. But I'm like, Kane Holloway is a hero, man. So you better do some heroic shit right now because that name is awesome.
Yeah, you got to live up to that name.
Yeah.
They gave you that name for a reason.
Yeah. You can't walk around with Kane Holloway and disappoint people.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. You said something on that podcast. You said to what you were just saying, there's the cool that you chase. And I think you were really referring to the cool that you chased in the past.
Yeah.
And then there's the cool that you are. And I thought that stuck with me. I still remember where I was what stretch of the 101 I was on when I heard that. Because I'm like, okay, that's it. That's profound.
Right, because everybody is cool,
Yeah.
Especially and you know it because they've embraced themselves
Yep.
unflinchingly, and they dress the way they want, and they are the way they want. And after you spend some time with them, you're like, they have their own style, they do things their own way, and everybody has it. It's not, some people really put it out there. Some people really want you to know it, so they push it, and some people just lay in the back and. But because you say to people like, "Oh, he's cool, man. That guy's really cool," you know. And it isn't. It's a combination. Like again, sometimes people don't know it, but there's humility is one of the ingredients of a really cool person.
Yes.
And there's people that are either the best manufactured people in the world, or they are real spirits. It's hard to tell sometimes. A guy like Jack White, you're like, is he a charlatan or is he really fucking Jack White? Like, I see the work, I can see the work he's doing, but at the same time, what would he do otherwise? What else do I want from him? What am I gauging his authenticity on? Tom Waits, here's a guy who's just been able to move through time and be Tom Waits, and people are thrilled. Now I've seen him in he was in the Coen Brothers movie that just came out, and that Robert Redford thing, Man with a Gun, Old Man with a Gun, and he was great. He's great in both of them.
To see him doing stuff, and
I
probably hadn't listened to his music in years, but you never forget it. If you've listened to Tom Waits, Tom Waits is in you.
Yeah.
And I recently was walking around and looking at the sky, and some lyrics came in my head, and I started humming a tune, and lyrics came, and then I was like, I'm borrowing this tune from somewhere. Where is it? What's the song? What's the song? What's the song? It's San Diego Serenade.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He, and he's just a real original, Leonard Cohen. I mean, there, and there's lots of them, but it is a thing that like, I don't know if it's the same way anymore because, there's a lot more freedom. I mean, I don't think, there's no freedom in being a teenager. That just sucks no matter what. You still have to conform to sort of what's going on. Being a girl is the hardest. Like I I watch the teenage boys at their school, and I go, they got some, there's bullies, and they got shit they got to go through, and some get, but for the most part, they're just all dumb boys, But girls are fucking vicious, man. It is. Yep. That is a brutal world.
Starts early.
Too early.
Too early.
Because the male predator eye is on a girl at around 13, so everyone's looking at her, and then other girls see girls be seen, and then there's the, I don't want to be. How come that person's not predatoring on me? There's competition.
It's just a tension at that age. It's a tension of validation, and it gets confused with, or negative attention can be mistaken for positive attention.
Yeah, no, I think girls should be taken out of the real world at 13, and put someplace where they can just play until they're like 20, and then be reintroduced, with handguns.
All those girls' schools. Yeah.
I know. I mean, that is kind of the truth. On the other hand, True's best friends are boys. Her friends are boys. She likes girls. She has girlfriends, but she doesn't find the community that she has found with boys in high school. Mm-hmm. And I like the boys that she's friends with.
Is she pretty no nonsense?
She's pretty no nonsense. Well, she's a bit of a square. I mean, she's no nonsense. She's very opinionated, but she also hasn't done any. And again, I stand on the edge, and I'm, but I think I'd know. She's very judgmental about people are getting wasted. It's so stupid, and I also feel like don't be too judgmental, because the opposite of that is. But she's, I don't know, she's pretty, I mean, look, I can't anything but marvel at them. It is they almost don't seem real at a certain point. You just have these human beings that are walking around your house that you get to watch and experience and root for and, provide for, and try and stay kind of out of their way with some guidance. As a dad, really, of girls, you really do sort of have to step back a little bit. Watch the greater perimeter while mom, that's the way it is, at least at our place.
Yeah. And girls want mom in close because there's all this stuff that you want to talk about and try to figure out and understand, and you don't want to talk to dad about it, and it's all weird as hell.
You don't. And then you'll eventually ask dad some other question, and you'll have some other connections. I mean, and a lot of dads I know, you end up doing a lot of homework, and then you do history stuff with them, and then you're going through that kind of thing, and you're there where they're being educated, and then you find out their opinions via, the things that you're learning in history and the conversations that they bring up, and and then you're replaced by fucking Jake, because Jake's on. He's smart too, and nobody wants to do homework with you anymore. The other girl's too smart for you, so she doesn't need anyone to help her do homework. But it is funny, that thing of oh, Trina and I, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do homework till she goes to college. Not till college. Jake will be doing homework with her now. Okay, cool.
Until Jake.
But I'm excited. I want boys to come over. I wanted a date. I fell in love every fucking week when I was in high school, and I had girlfriends, and I met their parents, and I went to their house, and there was that whole thing of I want there to be, a community of friends around, and I want her to have boyfriends, and I want her to go through things or whatever, or girlfriends or whatever anybody wants. Again, I'm open. Yeah. No white boys. That's what we've said. If you bring a white guy into this house, you might as well just pack your things and go, because we are not having it.
The market is saturated.
It is. Listen, you get yourself it doesn't matter, just not a white guy.
Just another one.
Oh, here you've done it again, upsetting the family with your white. Let me guess, his parents do something,
Right.
So yeah, it's are his parents gay at least? No, they're not gay. What are you doing? What are you doing to us?
Adopted? No, nothing.
Yeah.
The you mentioned Jack White a minute ago. Is when we were talking about music, you said what is he? Is he a charlatan? Is he real? Is he? And also mentioned, I think Amira mentioned him on, you guys were talking about the band, and mentioned him on your podcast, Maybe It's You. And she said, I can't wait for Jack White's 8 Mile, because I want to know the backstory. I want to know what really went on there.
Yeah, because he's an interesting cat. And I've done a lot of thinking about him, because, it's, as I mentioned that day, it's not easy to grow up in Detroit and walk around dressed like a peppermint stick with your fake sister and play on children's instruments. Like they really, there again, the art was just louder than anything else, and they let it speak to them. And I do think, and he had rules and parameters, and I like a lot of that stuff. And he's an incredibly creative, also polarizing. I think that's important for our art. I think if your art isn't polarizing, and I'm certainly guilty of making non-polarizing art, but if your art isn't polarizing, it probably isn't as potent as it could be. You have to be okay with not inviting everybody to the party.
That's tough.
I know, but all the really great artists do it. I mean,
you're right.
There's lots of people who probably think I don't get Tom Waits. It sounds like people are dropping pots, and I don't. And he's like an old man. I don't understand it. I love the Tom Hankses of the world. And we need those kind of sort of everymen, because we want a man. We always, the common man wants a common man to root for. There's but we need all those outliers, man. We need a Mahershala Ali. We need those kind of once in a lifetime, people who can inhabit wholly different characters and go after things differently. And I'm afraid, I think, I don't have the courage all the time to make my art. Sometimes our book titles are confrontational, but that first book, a lot of people hated it, and there were, we wrote letters, and there were feminists that hated it because we don't need a man telling us what to do. I'm like, well, that isn't, you haven't read the book. I'd appreciate, for the fight, I'm happy to have the fight with you. Just read the book so we can have the right argument about it. And I wouldn't argue either. I'd say you don't have to. I'm not. You don't see me I'm not running a scam here. This is just me putting out my opinion. And I think I forget that sometimes, my first real piece of stand-up, Mantastic, was not going to ever be up in a comedy club. And so I changed my stand-up a little bit to work in comedy clubs because I wanted to work in comedy clubs. But sometimes I regret that the work wasn't as personal as what I was doing at the beginning, because those kind of connections build you fans for a lifetime, whereas good art gives you fans for a weekend.
Yeah. It's hard. I say it's hard now because we're also in a culture of, the advantage of social media is you can put out whatever you'd like, wherever you'd like, whenever. Right. The disadvantage is if you're going to take it seriously, it's such a numbers game, just like the old media. Right. It's just a new, different kind of number. And you have to be prepared, because you're not going to have sponsors. The model now, you're not going to have sponsors for your podcast unless you have X number of downloads, and you're not going to have X number of downloads, and you have, it's like the marketing funnel all of a sudden comes into the picture. Of course. And then you start shaping your behavior and your choices around mass appeal. And it's easy to get away from what I like to talk about on this show, which is that true art, that what feels and rings completely true for you without hesitation.
I would say with I would say that was true with the Mantastic, which is the first thing that I wrote. A little bit on Uncool, but and the book, because I think the book was inspired, and we were both such upstarts about writing a book, and both so we don't fucking care about Dr. Phil, and we don't care about and we do think this is it doesn't have to be that complicated. Guy doesn't call you, doesn't fucking like you. Let's get cut through the bullshit.
Yeah, it's a very Gen X book.
Right. And then I think I think the next time I did something like that would be the first podcast I did, which was on this network called Walking the Room, and that was literally just a guy wanting to come over and hang out, and so we do the podcast at my house, and me saying, I just lost a talk show. I'm not gonna fucking. You bring the equipment then, because he was like, we got to do a podcast. I'm like, Jimmy Pardo's already doing one, or whatever.
Because there can only be one or two of us doing it. Right?
But at the beginning of anything, you think, oh, somebody's already kind of popular for that. We're not going to, But I think Dave and I stumbled into a genuine mindset, and we had it was dark, and it was, I don't think even sustainable. But it was a really sort of the community coalesced really quickly around it, and it was, you know, two guys who were disappointed at the way their lives turned out. The one guy had never been famous, and the other guy had been famous and was now in jeopardy of not being famous and wasn't sure how to feel about any of it. And they were doing fucking fake radio in the closet, you know. But also they got such a kick out of each other, and they were, I mean, you know, defining that combination of something that really makes you laugh and you make them laugh, and you can go to places that you can't go, like, with anybody other than a friend, you know. It allowed me to really get weird, which has not shown up in my work as much as I wish it did. You know, I have, you know, all the art in our house is pop surrealism, and I want to go, this is what my brain looks like. That's how I think in fish. Like, I don't, you know, but for some reason I've not even maybe even understood how to put it in my work, you know. I've tried to do it a little bit with the fiction I write, but with Dave playing the part of the fake serious person, sometimes I was able to just lose my fucking mind, which is a good and bad thing. But I really needed to go nuts and also not be responsible for something, and not be the person for whom if it failed, it would be me. And so for a while we had a little bit of magic in the bottle, and it was very specific. Yeah. But I think we represented something to a group of people who felt bad about their lives. Yeah. And thought, oh, it's possible for a guy to maybe not ever make it, and another guy to make it and lose it, but they're both trying, and the fans that we had were magical, and, you know, it was a good thing. But I think also after a while, Dave and I were like, we can't keep saying the loser story. Because our families don't love it, and we can't sustain it, and it's very difficult for us to maintain that. And also, you're going a little crazy, Greg.
And you start dwelling in that place.
You do, and then you start to feel beholden to people to stay there, because that is your audience, and that's not their fault. And I don't know that they want that. That's a story you tell yourself. But it was that thing of like, it just came together really quickly, just like the book did, just like the Uncool thing did, just like Mentality. It just suddenly was like, we had Clown from the Neck Down. Like, these things just fell into place without work. And it was the marketing. It was really easy, and we were both really able to, like, you know, we were making slogans. You couldn't make T-shirts fast enough to make the slogans, right? It just was. To me, it's one of my. To me, that's one of the things in my life that I would consider almost pure art. There are moments on there where Dave and I are in a place where I'm like, this is as good as it's ever going to get for me in terms of me putting myself out there, you know.
And did you have that visceral feeling? It's hard to describe. It's like it's like a buzz in your head, and it's a little out of body at the same time,
100%.
and you're conscious and unconscious at the same time, and you're just floating in your performance.
Yeah, it's a box in a box in a box. It's a box inside of a box. Like just those moments where I was able to go, oh my God, I am just talking. I am not. I don't know what's coming next.
In the zone.
And Dave's laughing, and he can't stop laughing, and then Dave says something, and then now I'm crying, and it's all really genuine, but it's also really. It feels visceral, you know. And then there are days where we would do it and we would talk about something and both be bored to tears, you know, or we'd try and, you know, it was podcasting, right? So it was some days, you know.
Diamonds and stones.
Yeah, right. But given how much we put out there, and, you know, anytime I see somebody stealing oranges from a tree, and, you know, just thinking that as an above ground hobo. I mean, that's an above ground hobo. What does that mean? Like, we just had this language that we sort of created together, and it was, to me, the closest thing I've ever done to painting. Right? Yeah. Like, it was like, you know, like it felt like, and I think, and the people who connected with it were so smart and interesting and peculiar and beautiful, and sometimes sad, and sometimes you know, and but also people got real inspiration from it, which is the insane part, because it's almost like you want to go, you should get real help and not listen to these clowns, you know. So
well, and maybe it was a combination of things. You know, he went on to work on Marin, and and there's what you're describing. There's a little bit of that in the episodes that he's on there. Some of the scripts and some of the places they went that were raw and honest and a little too real sometimes.
Yeah.
But and it sounds like a couple of things were going on that you were able to dive purely into your art. Who cares? This is just what we're doing. And then at a certain point, then the expectations are there. The fans are there, and like you said, the expectations start to show up. And then it's no longer what it was.
Well, you suddenly go, oh, we're sad guys, and while you might be sustainable there, the greater world does not have a lot of use for sad guys, sad white guys, and I think also I do think the beauty of some things is that they don't go forever.
Yeah.
I don't know that Dave and I would, maybe the edges would have come off, or maybe it would have just been nonsense words. Like, I don't know that it didn't have to end exactly how it ended. I think, it might have been tough for the people that listened to the show, but I think it was exactly the way it would have ended. And I think, we were on a high, both of us were on a high wire, and I think, and then we were both experiencing some damages to our own personal lives because of it. And you start to think, I don't know if this is even good for my luck. Like I'm putting too much out in the universe. I keep telling the universe I'm a piece of shit in a joking way, but it's responding a little bit,
Yeah. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, right. And I also think, Dave had to go on and do what he has ended up doing. I think there's other things calling to us always. There's more than just one destiny or thing to do. And I think, and also I think it's great that he did end up getting a career in the end, that he did end up doing something that made him happy. And that the podcast he has now,
Dollop.
It is not personal, right? It doesn't mean he's not personally involved, but he's not putting himself out there and going, I'm a failure and I'm angry about it. And
he's reflecting on other people's
choices
and
and but that's beautiful. It's like, I think ultimately in some weird way, that's what he should, that's where he was headed. Yeah. And I think that really was like where he was going. I had spent so much time trying to self-generate that to have somebody to fall back on and not have to be, it's Greg Behrendt's thing, it's Greg Behrendt's show, or it's Greg Behrendt this. It was just walking the room, and I could be without any kind of, no rules.
Yeah.
My wife didn't love it. It's not like, close friends, like I have some close friends that listen to it, but I have some close friends like, it's too dirty, it's too gross.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really gross.
Well, it was getting it out through the art. I wonder if, and this leads to a note that I had made coming in, but when you said the timing of it, that you had just come off of having your television show, Greg Behrendt show.
Yeah.
Which was a show about relationships.
Yeah.
And sequence-wise, so there's the book, and then you're known as that guy.
Yep.
You've been consulting on Sex and the City.
Right.
Then you write the book, He's Not That Into You.
Right.
And then you are the Greg Behrendt, the relationship guy.
Yeah.
And you're hosting a show.
Well, the thing that's sort of crucial in there is that I have an appearance. There were 4 total, I think, 3 or 4 total, 4, but I had an appearance on Oprah. And it was on a Wednesday afternoon. I think it was Wednesday afternoon. And we'd shot it the week before, as she did. And it was the week after she had given away cars. And so she couldn't have been any bigger.
Yeah.
And for an hour, she let me tell girls in a funny way that the relationships they were in were tragically flawed. And she gave me the floor. And it was to set them up, knock them down, set them up, knock them down. And more people watched that than watched any episode than all of the 122 episodes of my show. And there's a lesson in that, like, it worked as what that was. But as a daily show, you have to want more. And I didn't know what to do with the Daily Show. I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't, have this desire to solve other problems, but
Yeah.
you can only talk about relationships once a week, maybe. Otherwise, people are
Yeah.
It just we couldn't. They've tried to crack that thing for years, and they eventually end up doing makeovers. You just end up doing a Greg over. What was disappointing was that my solution to it was to do the show, but to also have it be surreal as fuck, which Dave and I lobbied for together, which was I wanted there to be, this is way early, but I wanted there to be Japanese anime characters in it, and there would be a bear in the crowd, and like it would still be a talk show, but there would just be these fucking, what is that?
Yeah.
And that the graphics would be, bubbles, and there would be nonsensical we just had this thing of like, we got to make this thing, but you say that to people who make daytime television, they go like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's very simple. They come on, she throws a chair, we cut to break, we come back, you solve the problem. Like, it's a very cookie cutter thing. It's not and it isn't an area where anyone's asking for any creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was really spun after the end of that. I didn't know what to do, or also it felt like I'd failed something. It felt like I failed something bigger than it actually was because nobody really saw it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like if you said to me, I lost that fucking tennis match.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I don't.
Yeah.
At my high school, I don't remember. I was supposed to win. And like, you're still a winner to me. I don't know what you're talking about, but I took it really like I'd failed in front of everybody. And and I'd been on such a win thing that there was going to be the other side of it.
Yeah, there was the course correction there. I would think that no matter how that happens, it's got to be tough because that is viewed as the pinnacle. You had a show with your name on it, all about your stuff, and then it's no more. But the question that immediately came to my mind was because one thing leads to another, and it's something you're good at, but I don't think that was the whole of your art. And what you just said about you'd like to have some surreal things in there, you'd like to have some other pieces in there.
Yeah.
A little Dick Cavett, a little Oprah,
right.
a little Fridays, a little bit of
right.
and a little Kids in the Hall, like all of that
right.
vision and plus some Greg, more Gregory Behrendt, not just that one component of
right.
Gregory Behrendt.
And it was very hard to get. Because I also kept saying to people, well, what will we do? I don't know what we'll do, and I don't know how to do just this thing. But also those things, those shows are learned on the job. I mean, you have one of those shows for 3 years before you know what the fuck you're doing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you really have to and to do it every day, and you have to really want to be on TV.
Yeah. And
also, I didn't, whenever I would, until those jobs were offered to me, I never wanted to be a talk show host. Like, I would watch talk shows and go, I don't want to be the guy that asks people what they're doing. I want to be doing something. I want to create something that people have that they like, that they take home with them, or that they watch, or that they do. I don't want to be the guy talking about it. I don't feel like that art all seems like it even as good as Jimmy Kimmel or any of those guys will ever be. They're making the same piece of art every night, and the really brilliant moments that they have kind of get lost in the machinery of it all.
Yes.
Right? They're not one-offs. They're, Oprah made a bajillion shows, and she was Oprah, right? But her big episodes were the thing that popped. That was that episode, right? And so, to me, I didn't really love sitcoms either. Like, I don't think I never really had a plan. I never really did. I mean, I do like the movies, and I think if I had been, if computers had come along earlier or something, because it was just too hand-eye coordination stuff that, you had to, you have to remember writing a script, you had to type out the format of the script. It wasn't like just plugging everything in, right? It was all much harder. And, but I would have loved probably to write and direct films. I would have gone, my first favorite, like when I was in college and I didn't know what we were doing, we would just go to the independent film house and we'd see, Jarmusch and David Lynch and the Coen brothers and all that stuff started happening. The Coen brothers came a little bit later. But we'd see these independent films, and I was obsessed with David Lynch. I was like, what? Yes, to all of this. This This suburban nightmare stuff is right in my, yes, what happens in people's yards. Like, I really found a kinship with that stuff. And same with Jarmusch, where I'm like, wow, we just get this. This was just a long panning shot of a guy walking down an alleyway. And Alex Cox made Repo Man. Like, that kind of Repo Man was big for me. Like, I just thought, that's the Los Angeles I want to live in. The one, you know. So that kind of stuff. But filmmaking seemed like it was another planet. And it seemed like it was only for guys like Steven Spielberg who had been making films their whole lives. You know, I never asked enough questions.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's what we think. We're like, you're a writer because you write every day. But there was this part of you that's like, am I a writer because I'm not whomever, like what I've defined as a writer?
Right. I have a lot of rules in my head that don't work for me. So I would say, if you have them, you're wrong. Like, David Lynch literally was like, I was thinking one day I wanted to make a painting that you could listen to.
Oh, yeah.
Like one that you could, like if it was almost like he backwards explained himself into filmmaking. Because his art was art. All he ever wanted to do is paint canvases all day. Like, right? I mean, he had a long art career before he started making movies. And then he happened into it. And he came in his way. So with his vision, he didn't come in as a filmmaker trying to worry about a story arc. And that's why some of his movies are, it's just difficult to watch. And then some of them are like, oh, wait, watch it a different way. You know, watch it as a painting, right? Look at it in a different way. And so, you know, but he also created what we now call appointment television with Twin Peaks, right? I mean, that was one of those things where it all worked. And it's like it was almost like there was a point in pop culture where, our team got one on the board.
Yeah.
You know, even when REM had a hit, REM has on the radio, one of our guys got on the board. You know, you were rooting for those things, not to become mainstream, just to be heard, just to be like, hey, this is also happening.
Yes. And I like it. And I like it for a different reason. I don't like it just because it's happening.
Yeah.
I liked it before it was happening and because of the coolness that registers with me. Like how I feel about that. So let's talk. Time just flies by.
Yep.
Let's talk about the King Sweater, because talking about being a writing scripts, writing and making films,
right?
Which you still could do, by the way, as well as go to barber college.
Right. Those things those are still on the table. My wife's like, she goes, if you go to barber college, you better go before your sight completely goes. So because you know you're going to be able to see people, you have to be able to see what you're doing when you cut their hair. I'm nervous about how I cut my own hair, but but then sometimes I'm smart about it and go, why don't you help me? But I do.
Use clipper or?
Yeah, clippers. Okay. Yeah. And I do I just like the idea of having a barber shop and being able to do it. And
they're hot right now.
Yeah, and they're
or maybe they were 5 minutes ago.
Also, hair cutting's not going away.
Right.
I was like, let's pick something that we're going to be doing again tomorrow, right? The King Sweater was, so when Walking the Room was sort of in peril, and I had a nervous breakdown of sorts, and prescribed myself the dog's hydrocodone on New Year's Eve, and landed myself in a rehab, or Christmas Eve, and landed myself in a rehab, where I very much belonged. When I got out, my wife sort of said, enough talking about the family. And I think that was when Walking the Room became a sort of a, it's enough.
Yeah.
People know our business. It's not their business. It's just
boundaries.
And I do think comics need boundaries. I really do. I think when you have
Good
a family,
luck with that. No.
I don't mean that I mean that I'm saying it comic to comic, friend to friend. You should think about what you're really saying and what the lasting effects of that will be.
Yes. Yes.
My girls are not thrilled about some of the stuff that I've done about them. Even if of course they liked it in the moment. They were little and I was talking about them on stage. But as they get older, they're like, well, I'm not really a dummy. I'm like, well, I never meant to. Well, that's what you said. That is what I said. You're not a genius. You're not a genius though. But do you know what I'm saying?
I told the truth. Yeah, but.
Yeah, and also, but anyway, so my wife and I thought, well, that presents an interesting writing problem because I have to go back to Australia where I was last year, and they know all my stories, and I have to write a brand new hour. Well, I'm not going to be able to write about the family. And so I thought, well, why not write about those 2 years that I spent in Japan as a rockabilly star, which I had never. But I thought, well, who's going to know?
It's
And also,
so cool.
And so I'll write about and I had this story in my head about how, I was at a party and I met a guy who booked bands overseas to play army bases, and he literally he hired this old rockabilly guy who had been in Bill Haley's band and died in the lobby of his apartment building, and he needed an act quickly. And I told him, on mushrooms, I know all the rockabilly songs and I can sing. And then audition for him while I'm on mushrooms. And neither of us know what's happening. But next thing I know, I'm going to Japan. And I go, and I've got this all-girl band, and we go and play a few gigs, and they're terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. And we get fired, and we get sent back to Tokyo. And but while I'm waiting around to go home, they said, well, look, you got like 5 or 6 songs together. Why don't you... There's a show band called Shonen Knife. Why don't you just go open for them? We'll get you the gig. Somebody that got me a gig, so I have somebody to go home. So we go and play this gig, and then Shonen Knife likes us and takes us on tour. That's what Mary, you playing all those, because I was playing TV commercials and old American TV commercials and the cartoon theme songs.
And they loved it.
They loved it. They were like, go on tour. I write an original song. The band and I do. It becomes a hit. At the same time, I invent my own hair product out of necessity, and so I get my own hair care line, and then I insult the emperor.
It just sounds like a dream come true.
It was like, the thing about it was, I wrote so much for me to get across that it would have required a year, really, of rehearsals, of like really learning to tell this elaborate story that I'd written for myself. And I gave myself 6 months. And there are times where I go, well, I'm just going to have to be a loose genius that can kind of figure it out. So on some nights it would come across, and some nights people go, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this did happen. Most of the time people were like, even though I say a couple times, none of this is real, they would say, what parts of Japan? And I had done, I've never been to Japan, but I did a lot of research, and I remember the era, and and it was quite involved. I just hadn't done, in my head, I realized, this requires more work than I've put into it. And I don't know that anyone's interested anymore. I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell. Nobody care. My wife would go, why does anyone care about rockabilly music from the 80s? I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what it is. I just have created a past I didn't have, and I'm telling it interestingly. It doesn't lean on any one thing. Yeah. Other than me then eventually insulting Hirohito, who was alive at that point still, and then being kicked out of the country for good. Yeah.
Well, and it's yours, so who cares about it? It's that point where you say there's a part of you, a component of your work that can be the work you do in a very small room that you want to do, and then there can be other work that you do.
What I then wanted to do with it when I came back, which I never did because it would have been also costly, but I was like, I want it to be an installation. I want to have the guitar there. I want to have artifacts from the time period so that you're looking at this stuff. Mm-hmm. And my friend, the guy who is not currently the producer of our podcast, said, "Oh yeah," he goes, "You make it a happening, and you have people show up. You hire a couple of people to show up and stand there in the corner and talk about you while other people are walking around the gallery looking at stuff and going, yeah, I guess he created his own hair product or whatever like that, And then I've got cans of it there. But I'd wanted to be like props out of a Coen Brothers movie. Like I'd want to have a real book and a real, I'd want to have real artifacts. You go, that looks like this must be real. Those are photographs. You know what I mean? Like to really do it. Yeah. Right. And then you'd get through it, and then I would tell you there'd be a 20-minute version of it. Mm-hmm. With me playing the songs and explaining what you've just been through. So, and I don't know how that doesn't just cost money and nobody but I still in me. Like that's the kind of stuff that spends all its time in me. So then,
Yeah. To me, my limited outing, it sounds like something that I would see at Dynasty Typewriter right now. I mean, that. Yeah. They're doing stuff like that. So.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I went to see Comedy Film Nerds there. They did a live show hoping fans would come out, and the room wasn't entirely full, but they, they did the show. They did the same show for us that they would do for the arena that I guess they sold out in Phoenix. So,
wow.
Anyway, we have to wrap up. I keep Aaron out too late. Say anything else you want to say and share anything else you want to share.
I mean, if you're listening to this, it's because you like process and you're looking for I always listen for inspiration. Somebody say something inspire me. In my head, none of the projects I have are dead. They're just on the back burner, right?
Nice.
I was walking out of the Bring the Rock show in San Francisco the other night, and there were a couple of fan people, and they had photos for me to sign, and they were the photo from the King sweater with the plaid suit and the blue hair, and got my fist up, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a thing to revisit at some point, but also, and just cut to the chase and do the thing that you like.
Absolutely.
Just cut to the chase. Cut the bullshit. And if you want example, I know it's a long, hard road sometimes to be able to get people to no one's just going to give you a Netflix show to do. You're going to have to make it on your fucking phone at first. But, the Coen brothers just showed up with the kind of work that they do, and they've been doing the same kind of work because they just they thought about the thing that they did at first, and then they went and put it out there, and they just kept doing it, There's a lot of great stuff on television right now. I think TV is, Patriot and Wayne, which is on YouTube, Schitt's Creek. There's a lot of like little mini auteurs all over television. So, anything is possible. But it would really help if you weren't white or a guy. So if you're a white guy, and you probably are, I think opportunity favors talent, and talent is always helped by resolve and tenacity.
And being true to your talent.
Yeah, be true to your talent.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Oh my God, it was so fun.
We were at Laura House's How to Hate Yourself.
Yeah.
I saw you after the show.
Yeah.
Brian Schwartz, thank you, Brian, said, hey, she has a cool podcast. And I told you I gave you my elevator pitch, and here we are.
I said, I want to do it.
Yeah, and you were funny. You blew up the stage in that show.
Oh, that's
I'm just
very
going to
kind of
say
you.
that. A lot of people were on that stage that night, and they were all very funny. It was a great show. There's a show tonight. You came up there. You talked about what it's like to be a dog. you have this way of talking about an experience. This would be a whole other conversation. That is just, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what the dog's thinking. It was hilarious.
Thank you.
So hard. So thank you.
Pound it out. Yeah. You got
Thanks,
it.
Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.